Is Russia about to invade Ukraine? Is the United States going to war with Russia? What the heck is really going on here? Well, in this video, we're going to look at the latest frenzy over Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. We're going to make sense of exactly what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And stick with me to the very end of this video when I'll reveal what's really going on with all the war drums beating in Washington, D.C. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you. As always, I am your daily fake news antidote. As each and every day, I provide patriotic analysis to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, gang, it is Christmas, and you are definitely going to want to check out our amazing merch store for gifts for the Patriots in your life. We got the best designs in the world, like our latest Eagles Fly Alone t-shirts. They are awesome. They are flying off the shelves. We got some of the best Patriot gear where you can pick out something that spreads hope and that supports my channel here at the same time. So make sure to click on the link below and get your Patriot merch today. These designs are punchy and fun. They're the perfect Christmas gift for the Patriots in your life, but they're not going to stick around for long. Like I said, they're flying off the shelves. So click on that link in the description below to both support me and spread Patriot hope. And let's make this the most patriotic Christmas ever. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. So what's really going on between Russia and Ukraine? There are loads of articles out there speculating on whether Russia's preparing to invade Ukraine and what NATO's response would be to such. It's become rather commonplace, particularly among American military brass, you know, the kinds like the woke warrior Milley and our mainstream media. They believe that Putin is a malevolent dictator who wants to conquer Ukraine. Okay, he's amassing tens of thousands, it may even be hundreds of millions of troops, we really actually don't know, along the border with Ukraine, but there's a super duper lot, and he's getting ready to go and suck up Ukraine in a bid to restore the glory days of the Soviet Empire. I mean, that's basically the gist of what you're getting from the mainstream media in this whole situation. Perhaps the single most hysterical headline I've come across of late comes from The Sun. Fires of war. Biden is pushing us to brink of nuclear war over Ukraine in chilling echo of Cuban Missile Crisis, Russia claims. Now, that's a headline. Now, I gotta say, in trying to make sense of all of this, Biden and NATO aren't helping, okay? They're not helping because the West's response towards Russia and Ukraine is frankly bizarre. On the one hand, Biden and NATO are supporting Ukraine. Okay, they're providing weapons, right? They're giving their full backing and, in effect, emboldening Ukraine in their provocations against Russia. On the other hand, bumbling Biden has made it absolutely clear that neither the United States nor NATO have any interest in actually sending troops to the region, despite the ridiculous calls for such by neocon Republicans. Remember, Ukraine is not a member of NATO. In fact, Secretary of State Blinken really threatened Russia just last week. He got seriously tough with Russia. He said if Russia even thought about invading Ukraine, Blinken threatened Russia with, wait for it, sanctions. That's right. The deep state in D.C. is threatening, I have a hard time to say it because it's so horrific, sanctions. Now, keep in mind, Russia has basically immunized itself from Western sanctions through the formation of what's called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Russia is not worried about big, bad, scowy sanctions coming from the Atlantic. And our leaders know it. They know it. Our media knows it. This is all a bunch of kabuki theater, which explains, at least in part, how pathetically incoherent Washington, D.C.'s posture is towards Russia and Ukraine. So on the one hand, Biden and NATO are egging on Ukraine in their showdown with Russia. But on the other hand, they're playing down any possibility of them getting militarily involved. Now, that said, there is a roadmap. There is a plan to bring about stability and peace in the region. And it's called the Minsk Accords. All right, you should know that. You should know that because our mainstream media rarely brings up those accords, okay? There's a peace agreement, and it's called the Minsk Accords. And what the Minsk Accords seek to do is bring about full restoration of socioeconomic relations between Ukraine and the breakaway self-declared republics within the Donbass region. Now, what you have to understand, that fundamentally is going on here. It's not a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but between Ukraine and breakaway territories within Ukraine. Ukraine has something called the Donbass region. Okay, this is the easternmost part of Ukraine. And two territories within that region, Luhansk and Donetsk, have broken away from Ukraine and declared their respective regional and political independence over the last few years. So this is an example of ongoing secessions within the breakaway republics from the old Soviet Union. So remember back in 1991, when the Soviet Union broke apart literally overnight, Russia lost a third of its territories, with all of its satellite nations like Georgia and Armenia and Belarus and Estonia and Uzbekistan and, of course, Ukraine all declaring their independence. And what we're seeing in the Donbass region of Ukraine is that the secessions are still ongoing. They're continuing 30 years later. But now in this case, they're more micro secessions within regions. So in many respects, what's happening in Ukraine is the continuation of the breakup of the Soviet Union. The map of the post-Soviet Eurasian world has yet to be finalized, as it were. So the Minsk Accords are a roadmap to try to restore some semblance of unity within the Donbass region so that the breakaway territories come under a unified Ukrainian rule. However, they're given in turn significant regional autonomy in their politics. Now, make no mistake, Russia has no interest in overturning these accords. In fact, Russia was absolutely instrumental in getting the Minsk Accords drafted and agreed to. Russia has no interest whatsoever that I can figure out to throw away the agreement. I know there's a school of thought out there that thinks Russia wants Ukraine to collapse into total instability and all-out civil war. But Russia studies professors like Paul Robinson at the University of Ottawa think that's absolutely nuts. All Russia cares about in terms of geopolitics is stability. It's all they talk about in their geopolitical conferences, which scholars like Robinson are actually privy to firsthand. He's fluent in Russian. And we see this on the world stage. How else do you explain the Russia-brokered peace deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Such a conflict was a perfect excuse, wasn't it, for Russia to go and invade Armenia or Azerbaijan? But if you think about it for half a second, how the heck is Putin going to sell such a massive military exercise coming out of nowhere with all the mass casualties guaranteed to follow? How's he going to even remotely sell that to the Russian people? Now, if that's true of Armenia and Azerbaijan, how much more would it be the case when it comes to a full-blown invasion of Ukraine, which would cost tens of thousands of Russian lives, including the lives of Russians living in that region? I mean, seriously. There's a peace agreement that Russia brokered to restore some semblance of stability in the Donbass region, in the easternmost part of Ukraine. The two breakaway territories can easily have their relative independence while satisfying the Ukrainian government's concern for maintaining its national borders. Russia has for months been trying to get the bumbling Biden administration to push Ukraine into complying with the Minsk agreement, but in the eyes of many, it's all been totally for naught. The West seems more interested in beating war drums that it has, ironically, absolutely no intention of following through with. So in the end, as I understand it, it's Ukraine that appears wholly uninterested in fulfilling the Minsk Protocol. Instead, they've actually been punishing the two breakaway territories with some pretty harsh blockades. And what do you think those blockades have been doing? Take a guess at their effect. Both Donetsk and Luhansk now want to join up with Russia as a hedge against Ukrainian aggression. And guess what? Russia's basically saying, fine. And so the reality is right now, as scholars are recognizing, Russia does not need to militarily invade the Donbass region. The Donbass region is coming to Russia. And Russia's just sitting back and watching the West and Ukraine scramble as they begin to realize that because of their own incompetence, they may indeed have lost the Donbass region voluntarily to Russia, and they're never going to see it again. And that is why bumbling Biden and NATO are beating the war drums. It's their way of trying to distract the world from their own geopolitical incompetence. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video on Vladimir Putin, warning that wokeness is destroying the West. Ooh, you're not going to want to miss that. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.